Lovely to see you again. If you haven't been here before, my name is Sharon Dower and I have a YouTube channel where I share hints and tips and flower arranging skills for you to be able to make some beautiful flower arrangements. Whether it's from your local florist shop and you've made a special trip and ordered some beautiful flowers, or whether you've popped into your supermarket last minute, or whether you grow flowers in the garden. Hopefully there's some type of arrangement that you will be able to copy. Now, I've used the urn a couple of times in different style of arrangements, and I've also used an urn like this in a different shape. I've got quite a lot of round shaped flowers in the studio at the moment, and I wanted to create a classic urn but with a slight bit of a twist. So I'm going to do what we would refer to as a grouped or textured flower arrangement. So rather than the flowers being spread out evenly, quite symmetrical, I'm going to group them together in individual clusters. And I've started the design a little bit beforehand just to check my mechanics were going to work. And you might be able to see what I've done here is I've got a round piece of floral foam, and I'll lift that out for you in just a second. And what I wanted to do was to create some forward movement, and I wanted to have something cascading over the front of my container. I'm a bit limited to the choice of materials that I've got today. I didn't have anything that I felt would really look nice over the container, but I do have ivy here for sale in the shop. So what I've done with the ivy, rather than cut it and only be able to use it today and then I would have to get rid of it after it's been used in the arrangement, I've decided to leave it on the plant. So obviously that's still in the pot, so I can sell it again tomorrow. And what I've done is I've just anchored it by using just a piece of stem that inserts into the foam, and with a couple of extra pieces of foliage around there, I'll be able to eventually hide that flower pot, but I will still be able to get some cascading movement forward. So sometimes we can be a little bit more creative with the materials we have. Quite often with this style of arrangement, if we want a bit of height at the back and we don't have the right materials available, then we can add in a planted palm to give us some height at the back, and that works really well in environments where it's very hot or whether the designs are going to be there for a long period of time. The plant will obviously last much longer. Okay, so I'm just going to take that out for a second to show you what my mechanics are. And this is a piece of floral foam. If you're new to flower arranging, you might not have seen anything like this before. As a commercial florist, we quite often use sheets of floral foam, so they come in different sizes. And I've cut a section out of there that will fit quite comfortably into my container. And we don't have a great deal of height in this arrangement, so it doesn't matter that my foam is very narrow. I'm not going to go tall, I'm not going to have any large pieces at the side, so a small short piece of foam like this is ideal. And this one sits quite comfortably in the base of my container and is going to work really well for the choice of design I've got today. I'm going to start with some ordinary tree ivy. This you might find if you're out walking. If you've got a garden, you might have it growing in the garden. Sometimes it grows up a wall, might cascade over from your neighbour's property. And I'm just really inserting this around that flower pot to hide it. So I don't have ivy that's long enough to trail over the side of my container, but I do have that lovely plant that I can use. So quite quickly and quite simply, I've got cascading movement forward, and I've covered the majority of it so you can't see that brown flower pot underneath. One more piece there at the back. Now a little bumblebee has decided to join me. I've got so many flowers in the shop at the moment, and the doors are closed so you don't hear the noise from outside, but you might hear a little friend buzzing around. Now, okay, now I'm imagining on my opposite side I'm going to have some of this, oh, now my brain's gone blank as to what it's called. We'll come back to that in a minute when I remember its name. Wiegela, I remembered. So I'm hoping that we're going to have some cascading movement on the right hand side, so it'll echo the trails of ivy on the opposite side, but without making it symmetrical and perfectly balanced. But before I do that, I'm going to add in some foliage. You might have seen me use these before. This is what we call in the florist industry Aralia, but you might recognise them as Fatsia. Fatsia japonica, and it's a palmate leaf, so very much like your hand in its shape. And I'm going to use these towards the back to give me almost an outline shape and a bit of a framework. And I haven't spaced them out equally. I don't want that perfectly symmetrical and matching shape on either side, but it gives a nice round outline. Brilliant join between my container and my flower selection, and then the gaps we'll fill in with different selection of foliage. This one is myrtle. You might not have seen me use this one before. Can't remember if I've used it in videos in the past. And if you think about the texture alongside that very flat Fatsia leaf, it's a really good contrast in the shape of the leaf and the size of the leaf. So fantastic contrast in material. And we'll work our way round until we've used up all of that material. Then I'm going to go with the pistache. Now, we've used this many times, and again, if I compare the pistache to the myrtle, it's very, very similar in texture and colour. So what I'll do with that one is bring it in between the two larger leaves, because it's a far better contrast. Now, my flower combination for this design today is very rich. It's quite a dark colour combination, and I don't have anything white. No whites, no creams, nothing that's light. It's a very rich colour combination, quite contrasting colours, but it's going to look wonderful against the very dark foliage. If I was maybe using more pastel shades, I possibly would introduce a variegated foliage in this, just to lift it up again. But if we look at what I've got this gorgeous claret coloured Wiegela, and this has come from my own garden here. Then I've got this country rose, or sorry, country blue, and we've used this before in other styles of arrangements. This is the multi-petaled rose, absolutely wonderful to use. Big head. Then I've got the Alchemilla mollis, which you'll probably see me use quite a lot through the summer because it's one that's readily available. So we've got that citrusy explosion alongside those plum and damson sort of colours. Then I'm going to introduce an orange. So this is called Frankie. Not everybody's colour combination again, but if you think about the colours that are in this orangey coloured Gerbera, that picks up really well with the claret colour of my Wiegela. Then I'm going to go with an orange, and real vibrant kick of colour there in the middle. This flower you might not be familiar with. It's one that grows locally in the area that I live. Its common name is Valerian. It's one of the centranthus, and it self-seeds. It's a beautiful cottage garden flower, and it works wonderfully with this colour combination, these plum and damson sort of shades. But it also picks up on the pinkish tones in my Carnation. And I think that's all my flower choice. So that's the various shades and colour combinations I've got, and you can see what I mean by a really rich colour combination, far from pastel, quite regal in its colours. Right, so let's get some trailing movement towards the front. I've got a couple of pieces that have a slight bend. Now I need to remember that my trailing ivy is towards the front, and what I won't be able to do in this arrangement, because I don't have the height of the floral foam, is to cascade them down very low. So if I just show you as an example, if I wanted to have this cascading down at the front, my floral foam would need to be up here. So the only position that's going to be able to go is outwards at that angle there. And that's fine, that's intentional. I'm not too worried about the position it's going to be sitting in. I'm imagining this arrangement is going into a large entrance hallway somewhere in a castle maybe, or a big stately home. So I'm not overly worried about the size it's going to turn out, but I won't be able to have many materials draping forward, and to solve that I would need to heighten my floral foam there in the centre. But for now I'm quite happily working low and making use of the way the flowers drape forward at the front. Right, okay, so I've got a nice shape there starting. I might lower this down a little bit later because it's quite high in the foam, but we'll see how the shape comes together. Now my Valerian happens to be cascading forward, so that gives me the opportunity to be able to bring some material towards the front. And I mentioned in the beginning that I described it as a grouped arrangement, and that is what I've got visualised in my head. But sometimes the material speaks for itself and it tells you where it wants to be placed within the design, so it might turn out it's not quite as grouped as I originally planned. But you know, even the so-called experts change their mind and develop their design as they go along. So the Valerian there at the back, so it's bringing the colour slightly through to the back, but you'll see I've got it in clusters as opposed to evenly spread out throughout the arrangement. And the finished design is going to be front facing, so the design will be looked at from one side, but remember it's always really important to bring some weight through to the back of the arrangement so that it doesn't tip forward, especially when you're in a raised container like this. Now let's go in with this wonderful vibrant green. Now again, if you're in the UK, you might have this in your own garden. It self-seeds everywhere. If you like a really immaculate garden and you don't like flowers self-seeding and naturalising themselves in the garden, then this possibly isn't the right one for you. Alchemilla mollis. We can buy this commercially as florists all throughout the year, but the summer season is its best time to be used. And again, if you look at the individual pieces and really appreciate the shapes of them, if you wanted to bring something forward, then that one would be an ideal piece to use. Okay, so we're going to bring a bit of that colour through to the back. It's really lovely, zesty green. And then it creates depth. You hear me talk about making the arrangement three-dimensional all the time. So by bringing material through to the back, you get that three-dimensional effect. Remember to have height, width and depth to your arrangement so that you create that three-dimensional effect. It gives your design volume rather than being really flat. And when you're using a raised container, it really is vital that you bring some actual weight, to the back of the container. So how are we doing so far? I think what I really could have done with is some nice bunch of grapes to hang down over the front there. But you know, we haven't got them today, so we'll plod on as we are. Now at the moment this might be a little bit big. I'm just going to see how that works on the edge. Oh, it's a bit big. We'll bring it towards the back instead. Now, on my left-hand side as I'm working, I've of course got that, doesn't want to go where I want to put it. We've of course got that ivy plant towards the front, and I'm sure you'll agree at this stage that the plant pot is completely hidden. We can't see it at all. There's none of that brown flower pot visible. So you know, if you're ever entering church flower festivals where your flowers have to be there for a long period of time, or maybe you're doing a wedding where your flowers have to be in situ for a few days, you could always consider buying plants and just incorporating them quite sneakily into the back or the side of your flower arrangement. If you're worried that you won't be able to get in and water the floral foam, this is always a really good solution to a flower arrangement. Now this, I think at the moment, is one of my favourite roses. This is Country Blue. It's a multi-petalled Colombian rose. The foliage is quite warm at the moment and the foliage hasn't held up particularly well. So I'm going to remove most of the foliage. It's been a very warm weekend. Still, the flower head is still looking really good. It's just the poor old leaves haven't coped with the dry air over the weekend. And it's a fantastic colour combination, a great link with the Valerian there on the outside. And when I turn this round in a second, you'll see exactly what I mean by grouping those together. So we've got a link with the colour on the outside, and we've got that beautiful sort of focal point of those big roses there in the centre. And one of the benefits of this type of arrangement as well is that because the flowers are cut short and they're close to the floral foam, they will last a really long length of time. When the water has a long distance to travel up the stem, then you're more at risk of having some air blockages. That one's not very good, we'll get rid of that one. You're more at risk of having air blockages and your flower heads cascaded over at the top. Now here, as a commercial florist, we use lots of proprietary products to make sure that the flowers get to you in perfect condition. So we use something called Quick Dip, where we insert the stems into a liquid that acts as a hydration solution. It sends the water up the stem quickly. Then we use different types of flower food here, and of course we always send out flowers with extra flower food added to the design as well, so that we're trying to ensure those flowers last for a really long length of time. And it's really important that you follow those set rules when you get flowers home as well. Whether you're buying them from the supermarket, the florist shop, or you have them in your garden, it's really important that you condition them properly and you look after them as soon as they arrive. Okay, so far we're very much pink and purple. Is that lovely claret sort of colour combination. Now I'm going to take us up a notch and add in some orange. And this carnation is a real good lasting flower. It's a paler orange underneath with a really vibrant red on the outside. It's quite feathery, really vibrant colour combination. You could mix it quite easily with reds. It would go beautifully at Christmas time with lush greens. But today I'm going to make it quite clashing, really contrasting, and add it in with these pinks and purples. Now I try to do different colour combinations each time so that you get to see different colours working alongside one another. And you know, don't worry if something that I find attractive is something that you find distasteful or something that you wouldn't work with. But it's nice to see how different flowers work alongside one another. A little bit shorter, I think, with those. Now we're just going to clear away some of this rubbish from in front of me because we've got lots of stems here building up. Alright, let's see what we've got. Now if we spin this around for you to see, you'll see how those groups of flowers are very much now clear to see. And then I'm going to bring some colour towards the back and some weight again to the back. Now if you don't have enough flowers, you know, I've got lots of flowers to be able to use in this type of design. I wanted it to be quite lush, quite sumptuous. But if you don't have enough flowers to bring through to the back, don't worry too much about it. Just cover the back with some foliage. It also stops the foam from dehydrating too quickly, so it will help your flowers last a little bit longer. Now then, my final flower is this wonderful Gerbera. I think this is one of my favourite flowers at the moment. Even though it's an orange, quite a vibrant orange colour, it goes so well with many colour combinations. It looks wonderful with blue and purple. It looks really nice with a soft pink. And it's lucky for me because I get to, of course, here in the studio, I get to experiment with different colour combinations to see how they work together. So a little cluster of the Gerbera on that side, and we're going to bring some towards the height there, because at the moment my height flower with the Wiegela there is almost standing up on its own. He's got no friends, he needs somebody to accompany him so he's not lonely up there at the back. And I'm not arranging in any particular set quantities, I'm just using up the flowers that I've got. Normally more pleasing to the eye is 3s or 5s in this type of arrangement. We use slightly different rules when we're using more modern type of floristry, or we're following more European guidelines. But most of my groups are probably 3s or 5s. I'm going to use up, I think, a couple more of the I've got 2 more Gerberas, so we'll use up these. And I think we're going to put them towards the back here, bring some of that lovely colour through to the back. Now with this type of arrangement, this is what I described as a grouped arrangement right at the very beginning, grouped and textured. And it pretty much says in the word what type of design I'm trying to create. So I'm looking to group my materials together, and I'm looking to include lots of textural quality within the flowers. So I have my groups and I have my textures, and what I've tried to do is work with a different type of texture alongside a contrast in texture. So this tends to be quite fluffy, whereas the rose is more silky in appearance. And the rounder shapes like the carnations and the roses suit this type of design better than they do the longer flowers like the oh, I keep forgetting the name. Why do I forget the name? Wiegela, or things like lupins or delphiniums. The rounder shapes really suit this style arranging. Okay, so what do we think so far? I'm just going to move this one slightly round more towards the front. It looks like it's sticking out on the side too far. We'll incorporate it round more towards the front. And I'm just going to slightly move that one. Now it does evolve, don't worry too much if you're learning arranging and you come towards the end and you feel that you need to move something around slightly. I'm just going to use a couple of the carnations towards the front, because I've got a gap here at the front that I can now quite clearly see. And I think I'm pretty much done. Quite vibrant. Not everybody's cup of tea with its colour combination, but I really love that. That would work quite well in an area which has a very vibrant colour combination. So if you had these types of colours in the wallpaper or maybe the curtains, you could carry the theme through quite well. And if you're used to using quite a lot of white in the arrangement, then you might find this a little bit harder process. But what do we think? Gorgeous arrangement. Dome shaped, using that metal urn at the bottom and a small piece of floral foam today. But I hope you've enjoyed that one. Don't forget, if you're enjoying the videos, to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell if you want to be notified every time I upload a new video. And please give us a comment, ask a question, or let us know where you're watching from. And we'll see you for the next video. Bye for now.